back to the channel. Andrew Summers here, and today I have brought with me something I don't usually build, and that would be an airplane. More specifically, this is an A29 Super Tucano made by the, I believe it's Embraer company. And I say this is something I don't usually build because for the past, God, how many years is it since I was first posting on Mock Page? 2008, 14 years? 14 years of building. In all that time, I have only built 2 aircraft, this one, and an old jet I made back in my Mock Pages days. Sadly, since Mock Pages has been defunct for quite some time now, it's impossible to resurrect those photos, but it was something kind of like a Space Future F4 Phantom. Wish I still had the pictures of it. I don't know if it would have held up in terms of design standards to this day. Probably not. But that was the only other jet I have ever built. Now, the reason I don't do planes or jets that often is I've just found I'm not all that great at them. For some reason, the shaping and everything has always eluded me. And every time I've tried, and I've tried multiple times in the past to design one, I just give up somewhere in the cockpit region and I go, yeah, I'll stick with land vehicles and the occasional helicopter. So this one kind of, well, not kind of, but definitely breaks that sort of mold that I've been in. And the reason I built this, I think it was kind of the cockpit was the inspiration for it. I felt like I could really translate this cockpit into a model of the A29, and I sort of went from there. And the model had some, quite a few challenges on it, but I'll just take you through the design of it here. So, starting with that cockpit section, in it there are room for 2 minifigures. You can open it up, one sits behind the other as in the actual aircraft, and you can see how I had to angle the cockpit design. So that uses some finger hinges to get the design of the cockpit to fit the windscreen glass there. And this model really uses a lot of finger hinges because it's very compact, a lot of folding elements and whatnot. And if we go to the back of the airplane, the tail boom, connecting it to the fuselage was rather difficult because I think there were only 2 points of connection from the tail boom to the main body of the aircraft. Now the tail boom, it has a little bit of weight to it. It's designed in such a way that I had to use like a lot of parts and whatnot. So there's a bit of weight to it. And I had to try and avoid as much sag as possible in between the tail boom and the cockpit. If you can see here, there's still a little wiggle room, but for the most part, it's pretty locked down and secured in there. The design, as you can sort of tell, it goes from like a 4 wide down to 2, like a 2 and 2 1/4 or something width. So that was a transition that had to be carefully constructed to prevent sag and also to try and have some semblance of stability. The tail of the model uses some of Lego's newer pieces, mainly these plates right here, which really came in clutch. I didn't see any other way to design the tail without those. So there we are. On the underside, at least to the back here, you can sort of see the transition between the fuselage and then the tail section. And then also you can see that I've used this giant slope on the underside. I've got several of those slopes, more than I need, and finally found a use for one of them in this model. And then just some general shaping elements in the back there, just to hold everything together. If we go to the front of the model again, now if you've seen pictures of the A29, and I'll put them up on the screen here, you'll notice that the biggest discrepancy between my model and the actual A29 is the prop design. So on my model, I use a 4-blade prop, and that's mainly due to part restrictions. Lego doesn't make a 5-blade rotor, and every time I've tried to come up with a brick-built solution, it always just looks too bulky. So I just decided, all right, I'm going to have one inaccuracy. It's going to be the prop. And, well, there it is. More on the front, you can see the intake underneath, and then I'm pretty sure these are supposed to be exhaust ports, but one there and one there. And some other elements of the design. You can see where I had to do some tapered shaping to the front. Kind of interesting what I had to go through to do that, because again, just like the tail boom to the fuselage, I had to go from like a 4 stud wide design down to like a 3 stud and then almost a 2 and some stud here. So that was a bit of a challenge. I think the biggest challenge overall with this aircraft, apart from shaping, was getting the landing gear to work. So if we turn the model upside down here, the landing gear does actually fold. So I can take the front, put it down like that, and I can take the 2 rear gears and put them down like so. Flipping it over a little bit more, you can see how, well, not so bulky it is. And that was kind of difficult to do. Number one, because I had to figure out how to place the wheels so that if I sit it down while the gear is down, it wouldn't tip over on its back. And 2, I had to come up with a streamlined design. So the front set here uses one of these bar clip pieces. And then that is I believe it's, what is it? It's it's one of those bar stud pieces with a tile and a plate on the back of it. And then the rear gear is pretty much just finger hinges and a tire wrapped around a round plate. So kind of had to get creative with those. And then for munitions, you can see there's a central either munition or fuel tank. I'm not too sure what that would be. And then you got some bombs on the side of there. But yeah, that is a look at my A29 Super Tucano. If you'd like instructions, as always, you can find those on my bio here on my YouTube page. So hope you enjoy the model, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.